Morning there guys and girls, it's another beautiful Friday in Saudi Arabia, and today I've got a little story for you all. In a few previous videos I've alluded to a set of mysterious circumstances that I was always planning on explaining to you, just on how I ended up at Saudi Arabia. A few people in the UK have asked me as well, but in the comfort of private conversation these things are generally a bit easier to explain in person than on video. How did I end up being a British expat, leaving the RAF and coming halfway around the world on my lonesome? And today I'm going to try and give you a little bit of background as to how that all came about. This is not going to be one of my more cheerful and positive vlogs, because it is not a particularly pleasant story, but it is a story that probably needs telling, so that you guys can understand what the hell's going on in my head. And in light of how this story begins, I need to tell you that if there are any continuity issues, I will apologise for that now, but I hope you'll understand that I need to get this absolutely spot on. So to begin this story, we have to rewind back to 2011. My partner and I have got our own house in Lincoln. I'm still in the RAF, and we are planning and preparing for our wedding. And my wedding day in August of that year still stands as one of the happiest and proudest days of my life. And things are good. You know how it works. You're newlywed, you've got your own place, and you know you're concentrating on building your lives together as a married couple, the start of the rest of your life. You have your good days, you have your bad days. Everybody has that, regardless of whether you're, you know, been together 5 minutes or 50 years. We were originally supposed to go on honeymoon to New York immediately after getting married, but for reasons that I won't go into, we had to postpone that, or rather cancel it, on the basis that we would eventually get round to sorting something out again. At which point we fast forward to 2013, and my wife and I finally go on our belated honeymoon, which was very bloody nice, and mostly paid for by my mother and father-in-law, for which, even looking back as this story unravels, I'm still very, very grateful. So we're in Florida, we're on honeymoon, belated honeymoon, and things aren't going too well. We're supposed to be enjoying ourselves, but there's just something not right. So I confronted my wife about it, and we had a chat and a discussion, and the long and short of it was, she wasn't happy. Okay, not a problem. What can we do to sort it out? What can we do to fix it? What can we do to make it better and get you back to being happy? I mean, we've been going through one of those sort of slightly rough patches, but you know, I just thought it was one of those things. And then she hits me with the bombshell of, I'm not happy, and I don't think that whilst we're together I will ever be happy again. Now, as I'm sure you can imagine, that comes as quite a bombshell to have somebody turn around and say, I'm not happy, and I think it's because of you, I think it's because of us, I think it's because of you, and I don't think I love you anymore, after just over 2 years of marriage. Suffice to say, the rest of the honeymoon that we had was a tad awkward. We agreed to work together for the time we were away, and we agreed to just basically try and make the most of the situation. We were in Florida, it was beautiful, and try and do the things that we wanted to go out there and do. So we get back to the UK, and we've got things to sort out, and there was a real chicken and egg situation over whether my wife's unhappiness, which it wasn't the first time we'd had to try and deal with this, it had been a recurring thing through the relationship, whether that unhappiness was being caused by the state of our marriage, or whether the state of our marriage was causing her to be unhappy. From that moment on, my wife was basically a closed door. It was like I'd suddenly, you know, was sharing a house and a life with a complete stranger who basically wanted absolutely nothing to do with me. So as I'm sure you can imagine, that over the space of several months is challenging, to say the least. At that stage, after about 6 months of dealing with this on a day-to-day basis, I basically gave her a bit of an ultimatum. I knew that I was going to be leaving the RAF, and I basically said to her, look, I'm trying and I'm not getting anywhere. I can't hold a marriage together on my own. I either need you to basically get on board and work with me on this, and we sort it out and we get to the root of the problems, we deal with it, and we grow and we become a strong couple having worked through it, or you give me no option and I have to, you know, when I leave the RAF I have to move on, and I move on from the RAF, and unfortunately I have to move on from the marriage as well. I ended up leaving the RAF in the August. I ended up finishing to go on my resettlement and terminal leave, and those were the toughest few months, to stand there and basically beg, please, you know, do we have to go through this? Is there any way we can sort this out? So I've left the RAF, and I've made the very, very difficult and unpleasant decision to leave my wife as well, simply because I was left with no other option. By a chance conversation with a very, very good friend of mine, there were opportunities out in Saudi Arabia, working with the Saudi Air Force, teaching the Saudis how to fix and maintain their own aircraft. And for me, that was always going to be a bit of a lifeline. One of the issues that I had in my RAF career, promotion, career opportunities were pretty much non-existent. So I came out of the RAF after 12 years basically as a very, very experienced spanner monkey. But if you want to move on in life, people want experience. So I start going for supervisory and junior management jobs, and it's basically, well, what experience have you got? It's like, well, actually nothing, because I've been a spanner monkey. I've not been put in a position of responsibility. I was given the opportunity to come out here and do a job that would not only keep me current with, you know, getting involved with spannering, but would also allow me to make that leap in my own career that I never got the opportunity to do in the RAF. So with the circumstances of what I was going through, for the company to turn around and offer me this opportunity to come out to Saudi Arabia, put some distance between me and the UK, put some distance between me and my ex-wife, and pay me, I'm not gonna lie, quite a considerable sum of money. It was just the perfect opportunity and I had to jump at it really. It was a bit of a lifeline. Anybody who's been through this process will understand, will know, these things are not cheap, especially if you're a bloke. And over the course of the last 18 months, 2 years, I've managed to completely erase that debt. So I am now completely debt free, pretty much for the first time since I was old enough to take credit out. I'm now well on my way to the house deposit that I need when I return to the UK. From a career perspective, this has been a very, very good move for me. A couple of moves that I've done within the company since I got out here, I'm now in a very, very good position where I have an area of responsibility, and I have some management that trust me to assess, analyse and make decisions that will allow us all to work better, allow us to get the job done. So hopefully after a couple of years of being out here doing this, or a couple more years, sorry, I'll be able to return to the UK in 2018. I've got some experience under my belt. I've been out and I'm living a life out here which is totally out of anybody's comfort zone, I think, and I'm basically going to try and make the most of the opportunities that, well, I won't say have been presented to me, but certainly I've worked to make them. I do get a little bit upset and I do get a little bit bitter about the circumstances. You know, I had this wonderful life in Lincoln that I was really settled. Like I say, I was at a stage where I was going to leave the RAF and then look at starting a family. That was going to be the right time. I've been through all the phases of separation, the disbelief, the angry phase, the, you know, coming to terms with it and trying to move on. However, I've now got to the point where I've got two issues. One, I desperately want to get back to the UK so I can start moving on with my life, but I need to do the time out here, A, for the money, and B, for the experience career-wise. But my concern is that when I go back to the UK, I'm going to be 34, nearly 35. I've got to start all over again. And when I have shit days out here in Saudi and I sit there and I go through that whole thought process of, I'm out here because I'm a divorcee, because I need the money, and because I need to start my life again. But when you have a shit day and you go, this is why, it's difficult not to have a little bit of resentment towards your situation. As I say, there's no hard feelings, there's no malice. You know, I still love my ex-wife to bits. She's now moved on, which is absolutely fine. You know, I love her to bits, and unconditional love means that sometimes you've got to put somebody else's happiness before your own. And if I was holding her back from being happy, it was a tough decision, but you've got to do it. You've got to let them go. And I genuinely do wish my ex-wife the very, very best of happiness and success in her future, and I do genuinely hope that she can be happier on her own or with, you know, whoever she meets in the future. I hope she can be happier than she clearly was with me. But it ain't easy being out here, it's as simple as that. It really is not easy. And that, unfortunately, is part and parcel of the dealing and healing process. Dealing with it and sorting yourself out and moving on. I think in a couple of years, when I'm back in the UK and I'm pretty settled, things will be considerably easier, because I can look back on this time in my life and I can go, I've been through that. That was all part and parcel of getting back to the UK and moving on. So what do I want from this time in Saudi Arabia? What do I hope to achieve? What do I want my legacy for, you know, this time in Saudi to stand for? With everything I've gone through to get here, you know, it's been a fucking monumentally shit 2 years for me. I've cleared the debts, I've got some money in the bank, I'm now in the process of looking forward. I can hopefully get a half decent job somewhere where my 3 years of supervision and management experience will hopefully actually count and stand me in good stead for getting a job in some sort of engineering or management-y type project management field. I should hopefully be able to put the past behind me, put Saudi Arabia behind me, come back to the UK and have a bloody good go at building on a future. Live happily ever after, as they say. I know it's bullshit, it ain't as fucking easy as that. Sometimes real life gets in the way. I'd like to think that, one, I'm a totally different person to the one that I was a few years ago. I'd like to think that I'm a bit older and a bit wiser, and I've always been the type of person that, do you know what, let's try not to make that fucking mistake twice, shall we? So there we go, guys. That's kind of why I'm out in Saudi. I did say this was going to be a bit like therapy, and this is the first stage. This is probably the video that I've been waiting to make since I started to do this in the first place. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people who can relate to what I've gone through and found biking as a bit of a salvation, or motovlogging as their therapy and this whole community. I'm not a massive believer in fate. I don't believe that life is a predetermined path, but I do believe in opportunity, and I do believe in, when opportunities are presented to you, that sometimes you take them, you make the most of them. As I say, with the point I was at in my life when this opportunity was presented to me, it just seemed like the perfect fit for me. Go off and rediscover who I am, go off and rediscover what I want from my life, but also be able to go and do a bit of exploring of the world. See, I've always liked travelling, I've always liked going and seeing places, and here is my perfect opportunity to do so.